All right, so let's read that opening paragraph that introduces the Beatitudes. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain. We've talked about what a mountain is. And after he sat down, this was the standard posture of rabbis who were teaching their students. They would, if anything, they read while they were up and sat down to teach, but always sat down. They sat in ex cathedra. They gave their teaching out from a chair, and his disciples came to him, and he began. So disciples, learners, he began to speak and taught them, saying, the last bit, the reason I've bolded that is that it's a much more formal beginning than is customary in the Gospels. Usually it would be, and Jesus said blank. But this is almost like, and he gathered himself and he gave this oration in a way. The Greek is more complex and the Greek is more formal than you would usually toss off if somebody were just setting up to talk. He began to speak and taught them, saying, and it's a Hebraism, by the way, that the language is clearly a little awkward in Greek. There is a way of saying it in Hebrew that was normal for big occasion speeches. Now, with that as the intro, let's go to blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Jesus is holding forth to his disciples, and the first two things that he holds up as blessed are being poor, poverty of spirit, and mourning. That's probably as surprising to the people who are to his disciples and those who listened as it is to you and me, if we can divorce ourselves from all those years that we've heard this and made it sound normal. The repetition of times you and I have heard this word, most of us have heard it many, many times, and it gets normal to hear blessed are the poor in spirit. But if you hear the word blessed, and we'll get to what Makarios means in a minute, when you hear the word blessed, you should think happy or blessed. Makarios is about a very blessed state, a very happy state. Happy are the poor in spirit and those who mourn, should surprise us. So we need to, at times, we need to lay aside familiarity here and actually let the text shock us. Because, and here's the backdrop for that word. The Greek word is makarios. And it means, as I've just said, blessed or happy. It went through three phases in development of its meaning. Early on, in the earliest times that we have it appearing in Greek language, it means the state in which the gods live, who need not work and are beyond the ravages of time. So people are blessed and happy if they aren't subject to the vicissitudes of life, if they aren't subject to getting a sliver under their nail or whatever you find the most annoying things that happen to you. They don't have to go out and work. They are in this blessed state. And that is what the early use of the word pictured. This is a wall carving of the gods, two of the gods. And so think of that as the beginning of the word Makarios. The gods are the blessed ones. But then there went through a middle stage where it was the condition of the dead who've ceased suffering those same ravages and are experiencing nothing, kind of the nirvana of numbness, right? But they aren't subject to hard experiences, bad sides of history, bad sides of experience. And so this is a portrait of the dead. Again, I think it's from a tomb. And so the second phase is blessed are dead people because they don't have to put up with everything that happens to us, right? Gods are blessed, and then the dead are blessed. And then notice what the third is. The experience of the elite who have the power or money to buffer themselves against the difficulties of life. So we go from the gods who are remote to the dead who are no longer being hounded by life experience, to the elite who can distance themselves from the pains that most people feel or most people experience. So, in light of that definition of Makarios, or that history of the word, it's worth going back and realizing that the first thing Jesus says is, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, and blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." Very surprising words, because why would you mourn? Because you've had a terrible thing happen. Everybody defined by Makarios in the history of the word doesn't have those terrible things happen.